Alexis, and this is the Whatcha Watchin podcast. And today I am joined by Billy from Geek of Oz because we are going to be talking about an amazing new Hindi movie called Kill. So excited for Billy to join. Billy, thank you so much for being here.
No worries, my pleasure.
So I think we'll start out before we get into spoilers because this is a brand new movie. We'll give just kind of a brief first impressions. This is a kind of a simple plot for sort of an action movie. It's sort of a revenge story, but
Mm.
it has some of the best action I've ever seen. So,
Oh
so
boy.
I think what were your kind of initial thoughts? What kind of made you want to see it? Because you saw it at the Sydney Film Festival, or did you?
Yeah, Sydney Film Festival. I can't remember if it was announced late or not, but I don't know. I just my thing is so with Sydney Film Festival, what I normally do is I usually go for horror and queer stuff because a lot of the times they hardly ever get a wider release. And I don't know, the horror films were kind of lacking this year at the Sydney Film Festival. There wasn't that many like scare me. Um, like I love to get freaked out, and I mean the program is called Freak Me Out, and this was part of it, so that was definitely one of the reasons why. And I mean it is scary, I guess, in a way, like the action, but I wouldn't call it like a horror film.
Yeah, it's interesting. It has the sort of buckets of blood and gore of like a
Mm,
horror movie, and there's some nice like tension moments where, there's a sequence where the train car is all dark and they're kind of like trying to navigate through
yeah.
without like being murdered. And like that has some good tension in it, but it's true it doesn't kind of have the typical horror movie elements. I think it's more
No.
like thriller action-y kind of than your average
I
horror.
mean, the girl that was next to me in the cinema was definitely like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god." So there was
I've
that.
seen I've seen that a lot. A lot of people have basically said like this is so violent that I've seen people struggling with that, and it just makes me like,
Yeah.
am I a sociopath that I'm like not bothered by how violent this
Well,
movie was?
I'm not sure if you've seen Kinds of Kindness,
I
but
haven't yet.
yeah, but like I know people at the Sydney Film Festival that walked out of that and not walked out of this.
Interesting.
And it's like there's more gruesome stuff in this than there is in Kinds of Kindness. And I'm like,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
like where people draw the line and like what disturbs you seems
Mm.
to really vary. I think for me, I like I don't know. I've always really liked action movies. That's always just kind of. I remember when I was a little kid, one of my favorite movies was Predator, which is like probably like
Oh my
says a
God,
lot about
yes.
how I grew up and everything.
Yes.
But
Love it.
but I always loved those movies where it's like really a lot of action or there's like blood or there's like just violence or something. I've never really been super bothered by that, and I think in this the violence to me it was not so much the visuals of the violence, the sound was really amazing. Like there's like a real squishiness to some of
Yeah.
these things that there were a couple times where I was like, oh, like watching it, you do kind of have a very like visceral reaction to it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely. Like I'm the same. I grew up on films that I should probably have not seen as a child. Like very definitely like Terminator, Predator, all the action films of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Beverly Hills Cop. Definitely shouldn't have seen that as a kid, but you know. Yeah,
We
so
had lenient parents back then,
yes,
things were
exactly.
different. It was pre-internet. Your parents didn't necessarily even know what you were watching, and you could just get
No.
away with anything.
Yes. And we used to live as a kid above a video store.
Oh,
And
nice.
so the guy, when he left, he just gave all his
Oh,
VHSs to my
wow.
parents. Yeah.
That's crazy. So you had like
So,
a full collection as a
oh
kid.
yeah, yeah.
That's so
Still have some of
cool.
them. Yeah.
So cool. Oh,
Mm.
that's really awesome. What a great way to start you out. And I would
I
imagine you
know.
learn to love movies very early when you just have access to an entire library like that.
Yeah. And then like a lot of films that like have not aged well,
Yeah. Yeah.
like Bachelor Party.
Yeah. I was telling a friend like pretty much anything before like, 2018, you look back on it and you're like, "Oh boy, like it was a different
Yes.
time back then." you know?
Oh yeah.
Well, I think we can go ahead like so both of us I think would highly recommend this movie.
Oh yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was great. If you can stomach horror kind of gore but with an action sort of twist, this is a great film. I loved it. I thought it was great. So I think we'll just go full spoilers. We'll be able to talk about plot points, all these different things in there. So if you haven't seen the movie, check it out. And if you don't mind spoilers, stick around. And we'll get into spoiler territory here.
Awesome.
I think I was really surprised. There were a few surprises in this. I think I'm so conditioned for like Hollywood action movies where there's a certain kind of formula. It's like, oh, the girl may be in danger, but she's not going to die, or they'll be happily ever after at the end. I knew his friend. I was like, this guy's playing on borrowed
Oh
time
yeah,
because
yeah.
immediately you're like, there can only be one guy kicking ass on this train.
Oh yeah.
But when they killed the girl, I was definitely like, this is okay, we're really doing something here, and it
Oh
sort of
yeah.
propels the movie in a new direction.
Oh yeah. Like I thought, like based on the trailer, like the trailer really doesn't give it away. Like they really cut it out. Because I mean, that scene is also even slowed down. It was very slow motion, so I guess they can get away with it in the trailer. But yeah, I was not expecting it. I was fully on. Thought we were going to get like a Die Hard saves his wife at the end sort of thing.
Yeah. I was so sure that it was going to be, oh, she's in danger, and then he's going to kick a bunch of people's ass, and then they're both going to, like jump off the train or something to safety
Mm.
together. And when they sort of made that point, and like you said, the slow motion I thought was really interesting too, because this movie is not, none of it is really in slow motion. There may be like a couple sort of big hero moments or shots of him where they're kind of like letting that sink in for a little longer, but the vast majority of the action here is really fast paced and really like tightly choreographed, which I think for me, I've seen so many Indian blockbusters. I mean, you and I both like the YRF Spy Universe movies. A lot of that is very slow motion heavy. It's like hero shots that are beyond, big over the top kind of action type of moments. And I think with this it was fascinating because it's such a different direction. And I'm not used to seeing this really fast-paced action in sort of an Indian blockbuster, and I loved the way that it changed that up. And then I do think it made the moment when Tulika dies, like it really made that impact greater because it was
Oh
in
yeah.
slow motion. It was like it stood out really as like this is a defining point in this film.
Oh yeah, and it was very like, no, she's not just gonna be stabbed. No, she's gonna be stabbed and thrown off the train.
Yes. It was like she's going to
There's
be
no
stabbed
hope of
and then
survival.
stabbed again and then repeatedly stabbed and then tossed off a train. It was like brutal. Like they
Oh, yeah,
really,
it,
you
it
know.
was like when the first thing that can think of right now off the top of my head is when they like got rid of Ned Flanders'
Oh god.
wife, and it was like, yep, she's not coming back.
Yeah.
That's it. Nope, that's it.
Totally, totally. Or like the chef death on South Park where it was
Yes,
like it was just like for comedic effect, and then he falls off a cliff, and then a mountain lion, and then it was like, okay, we're really making a
we've
point
really
here.
done. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And I like the way that he witnesses that, and it really is the moment when he sort of switches over because he's kind of, yeah, he's sort of punching people and things like that before this. He's knocking people out, but then after that, he's like, I'm just gonna stab everyone and kill people with a fire extinguisher and light people on fire and shit. It just
yeah,
starts to
like because I
really
think
crank up.
before that, doesn't his mate tells him, yeah, like we just kind of, I think I can't remember it exactly, but he pretty much says to him, yeah, we're just gonna incapacitate them, not kill them.
Yeah, they kind of seem like they have a policy of like, well, we're just gonna kind of handle this problem, but we're not gonna necessarily be, out for blood with all these
Yeah.
guys. And then that's the moment when it gets serious for him. And then it's like he was just gonna beat these guys up, but now he's gonna kill every single one of them,
Oh yeah.
which was great. I loved
And hang them up as
yeah,
well.
yeah, so like, really, really illustrate his point, really drive his
That
point home.
that made me think of like Die Hard, where it's like
Totally.
he puts the body on the chair, and it's like ho ho
Mhm.
ho. Yeah,
Yep, for sure. Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's cool. It's like you could see where it's like informed by a lot of other action movies.
Mm,
But then it really goes in its own direction. I've heard people talk about, like Bullet Train or just movies like train movies. I've heard people talk about Die Hard with this. You could see where it kind of takes inspiration from those things.
hmm
But then it's really presenting us with this very unique kind of way of getting all that across. And what we see here is it does feel super special and creative.
Y- Yeah, and I've seen Bullet Train. I enjoyed it. I know not everyone did, but it wasn't that bad. It did feel a bit of like almost like an afterthought, like, oh, let's do John Wick on a train. Whereas this is like, no, this is John Wick on a train.
Yeah, I feel like it's funny. So many movies after John Wick, everyone that does these really good fight scenes, I feel like is sort of going for John Wick. And I mean, even something as recent as like Monkey Man, we kept hearing like, "This is Indian John Wick." Everything is like, and it's John Wick. And then when you watch this, you're like, no, but this really does feel like John Wick in terms of it's that really visually cool, stylized fighting. And I love the close quarters of the train cars because it really, I mean, to me, what an interesting thing to have as a limitation for yourself and for your stunt team to say, okay, but all of this has to be in a teeny tiny little train set, you know? So we're on a set, it's the train, we got to be in really close quarters, and yet somehow that that feels like the added claustrophobia element really just enhances it even more and makes it even more sort of tense.
Yeah, see how like back to what you said about how like after John Wick, so many films wanted to do John Wick. Similar like to the Matrix, like after the Matrix, everyone did bullet mode. And I'm like, I feel like this film might be a new thing where like, yeah, no, let's all be like, let's do films like Kill.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
we're already
wish.
getting a remake, which is Jesus, that's so quick.
Oh, I know. I was like, it hasn't even opened yet, and they already announced a Hollywood remake. And I'm like, let
Yeah.
the movie breathe for a little bit first, you know?
Hmm.
Let it come out. But yeah,
Hmm.
I'll be curious to see when they do the Hollywood version of this if they keep sort of that fast-paced action and kind of the feel of it. Because I could also see this becoming something where Hollywood is like, oh, we need more backstory for, you know,
Yep.
this relationship. We need more of this, we need more of that. We've really got to pad this out. And I think one of the biggest strengths of this is it feels like really tight storytelling. Like it's very
Hmm.
efficient. It's like, you know, we see that, okay, there's this couple, they love each other, whatever. And it's kind of like all of that isn't really that important, you know? We got to get to the
Yes.
train, we got to get to the action, you know?
It's
Um,
similar to, I guess, like when American sitcoms do the American version of a British
yeah.
one, and like the British one is like 6 eps, and then the American
Yes.
one
It's like
is
23 or
20
something.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. It's for sure. It's like I think there can be a sense that we need to pad the story or we need to,
Mm.
well, people won't be emotionally invested in this guy if we don't give you an entire thing about how he got here and his struggles. It's like, no, 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 it's not important. Like we get it.
I can also see in the American version of this that um that his well, I mean they'll probably change the name of the partner, but I reckon she won't die. Somehow
Yeah.
she'll survive.
Yes, I'm totally wondering that too. It'll be the kind of thing where like she gets stabbed in that very convenient Hollywood, you know, stabbed in the stomach and you're just like, "Oh no,
Yeah.
I'm bleeding." But then you just bleed for the whole movie and then by the end they're like, "And here she is in an ambulance and she's fine."
Yeah, or like, she does get thrown off the train, but at the end of the film you realize, oh wait, no, she survived.
Totally. It'll be the kind of thing where they'll probably do like an audience test and audiences will be livid that she dies. So then they'll throw in an ADR line about like, you know, hey, like guy, we just got word from the hospital. She's safe and okay. You know?
Jesus.
I
I
could
wonder, I
completely
am
see that.
curious, I'm curious as to what all their names are going to be in the
Me
American
too.
version.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see if they like just super American it up or if they let them
Jim.
be. Yeah, totally. It'll be like, ah, yes, it's Jim and Jenny or something, you know, and it's like, oh,
Yes.
okay, like, well, fine. But yeah, the fact that this is getting a remake so quickly is really interesting because I feel like we've seen a lot of like Indian blockbusters, and it's interesting that this would be kind of. I think it's small enough in terms of scale. Like it doesn't seem like it was a super expensive movie, so I could see where they're like, oh, we could just remake it. We don't have to try to like make this a big thing in the United States, even though I think it did open really wide. I think it's worldwide now. Um,
Yeah, I think we're getting a limited release for it. I'm not sure why it's not a wider release.
I wonder if it will
Um,
build, you know. They did something kind of similar with Kalki, I think, where
mm,
they had it for a little bit in a few theaters, and then I've noticed additional screenings, additional theaters are getting it. So I could see this movie is so well reviewed. I could see it kind of expanding over the next few weeks and giving people a chance to check it out.
yes, definitely. Let it marinate.
Yes, which would be so good because it's like this is worth seeing for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna say, my train of thought. I'm just thinking about all the action and everything now. But the age of the actor, the lead, like it's so wild that like he's not a 60-year-old man like the Spy Universe.
Completely. I feel like I'm so used to seeing, you know, older Bollywood stars in these roles where they're kicking ass, and you're like, well, we're being real generous with our shots and our timing of
Yes,
things. And to have this guy who's young and just kicking ass is a change of pace, I think.
yes, definitely.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you know, it's not exactly Patan with his abs, you know, glistening as he kicks somebody's ass or something, but or Tiger with that scarf, but you know, it's
At least Pravas. I mean,
yes.
he's not that much older than the lead in this. What's the lead's in this name? Lakshya?
Lakshya? Yeah, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah. I think that. Oh wait, no. Yeah, he is actually. Lakshya's 30 and Prabhas is 40 something. He's younger than the Spy Universe actors.
Exactly, exactly. It's like he's a baby compared to the Spy Universe gang.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah.
know? What would you say? There are a lot of very creative kills in this movie. Which one sort of stood out for you? What was one that you're like, damn, I've never seen that before?
You know what? The head lighting on fire. I think the head being lit on fire. Because what was it? So he put
He
a
found
bottle
a
of
like a
lighter
lighter
fluid.
fluid. Yeah, he was going through it was as he was going through those bags and he's looking for stuff to use, he finds this lighter fluid and I was in the theater like
I know. I
like I
was
was
like,
like
how is that gonna work?
yeah, I was like this is somebody's going to be set on fire before the end of this.
Yeah, and it was literally the way he did it. I was like, that is not what I expected. I thought he was gonna make like a blowtorch or something, but nope.
Same.
Shoved it in the mouth and just lit the guy on fire. And I was like,
Yeah. I,
Jesus
I fully
Christ.
expected to see just like a guy on fire like in a suit type of thing, but I did
No.
not expect to see just a person's head on fire.
Yeah, I did not expect to see Indian Ghost Rider. Like, I'm like,
Exactly.
Jesus.
Yeah, that was a very that was certainly a creative one. I was like they foreshadowed it. They kind of told us like this is coming, and then when he finally got around to it, I was just like, oh man, like I have
Mm.
not seen that, so that was a new one for me for sure.
What was yours?
I loved the fire one. I also feel like the most kind of like gross and somewhat disturbing one was the when he's killing that guy with the fire extinguisher and he like
Yeah.
bashes that guy's head to the point where it's just like gooey and gross. That was where I was
Yeah.
like, "Damn, okay, like sound effects really doing some heavy lifting
Squelchy.
here." Yeah, exactly.
That was going to be my next one to mention. I don't know why, it just made me think of like a watermelon being squashed.
Totally. I would love to like I need an interview with like the Foley artist that worked on this because I would love to hear what they used for some of these sounds. I feel like every stabbing had like a gooiness to it. Um things like it was really the sort of sound mix in here really added to it and I think that fire hydrant moment was where I was like, "Oh man, like the sound is a huge factor here and just making this feel gross and unnerving in a very fascinating way."
Yeah, it just shows how much like sound is important in a film.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah,
It really adds a lot to the landscape of a movie, big time. Oh, I loved the villain in this. I really liked the fact that it's basically just this whole sort of gang and they're all kind of related. I was really impressed with I think I said in my TikTok review like somebody
related.
dies. Yeah, yeah, well, you know. But
Yeah.
like somebody dies and they take a moment to be upset about it, which
Oh
I
yeah.
I feel like we never see, you know, in a Hollywood blockbuster, there's always just these bad guys and there'll be a gang of them and then somebody dies and everyone's just like move on. So I
Yeah.
loved in this how it was like, but they killed so and so, you know, and the like
He's
you
my
really get a sense
second
of that.
cousin from my mother's side, and it's
Exactly.
like, Jesus.
This dude's wiping out an entire family tree here, you know.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I thought that was a very interesting thing that we don't normally see. I'd be curious too in the Hollywood remake if they will let the villains have kind of humanity like that, or if it will just be like we're here to rob this train, and we have no backstory, we have no connections to each other, and no emotions.
Yeah, and I could totally see though as well. I don't know if this is an Indian filming thing. I
Mhm.
do know like there is like female action stars, but I could totally see them being more female villains
Yeah,
in the American remake than this one.
totally.
I
Yeah.
fully thought that there might have been, but it didn't end up happening.
Yeah, I wondered that too when they would show kind of the train cars, and there was a lot of you don't know who's sort of with the
Yes.
bandits or who isn't. I was definitely expecting at some point a woman or something to get up and them having to reckon with like, do we beat the shit out of this woman or what do we do here?
Yeah. Because I
Um,
thought, because as soon as I saw the I guess the Indian mother and auntie with the
yeah.
cricket bats and everything. I thought, okay, cool. We're gonna get like a female villain as well, but we didn't end
Hmm.
up doing that. But it's fine.
Yeah, I could totally see that happening in the American remake. Like, I could see them being like, and we have all these female stunt performers that we've brought in, and they're going to do a whole sequence where they all fight each other or something. I could definitely see that being somewhere that they
Yeah,
go with it.
similar. It just made me think of like when Ruby Rose was versing
Totally.
Keanu in John Wick. I think it was two or
For
three. I
sure.
can't remember now. It's been so many.
Absolutely. Yeah. For sure that type of vibe, absolutely. Yeah, I think overall, loved it. Thought it was
Same.
really great. I think it's definitely not one for the faint of heart. So
No.
people should for sure check this out, but know going into it, you are going to see a really violent movie and not
Yes.
necessarily like, Tarantino Kill Bill sort of violent. This is going to be like viscerally violent.
Oh yeah, squelchy violent.
Yeah, exactly. If you can't
You're
handle
gonna
the
be
sounds, like you're going to have a problem with this.
you're going to be digging into your popcorn like nonstop.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. It's like it's hyper violent, but it is very much sort of a popcorn blockbuster in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I feel like people know they should check it out. We highly recommend. People dig it. Billy, will you let people know where they can find you online and where they can follow along and hear all your content and stuff?
Thank you, thank you. Look, we post on Facebook on Geek of Oz. Everywhere else, I am listed as Aqualec. That's AQUALEC, and usually these days it's just letterbox stuff and maybe what are the new social platforms? Blue Sky
I know
and
Threads, Blue Sky. It's like every
Threads.
week
Yeah,
there's another one.
exactly. But yeah, I'm just Aqualec on most places and Geek of Oz everywhere else.
Awesome. Well, everybody give Billy a follow and check out his letterbox because I love following Billy on letterbox. I really love seeing what you're watching, and
Same.
you're
I
like
usually
you're like my favorite. I always go. I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna see a movie, I'm gonna go on there. There's like three or four people that I'm like, I need to know what they thought of this, and you're always like my number one on there. Where I'm like,
same.
we'll see. Well, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Billy for being my guest today, and I'll catch you in the next one.